Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show with Mark Wallace, your host and facilitator, with you here every Monday night on intellectualradio.com, iHeartRadio, Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. We are live with you, and of course, we're going to be talking about all of those things that matter to our community. So make sure that you tune in to the program and share it with your friends. Share it on your social media. Of course, we are 22 days out from the election, and there is talk within the polls. Now, I am not a person who relies on polls. Now, they're all saying that the polls are very tight. The polls are very close. The race is very close, and it's going to come down to a few votes in the battleground states like North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia. And I believe that places like North Carolina, places like Georgia, where they are doing all that they can to make it more difficult for people to vote. And all of those policies are coming out of Republican legislation because they have a hard time winning races when there is a large voter turnout. And so whoever works the hardest, whoever knocks on doors, whoever is touching people, getting people out to vote, is the campaign that is going to prevail. Now, I think that it is incumbent upon all of us who are in the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz camp to volunteer some time, even by going on a road trip. If you can go on a road trip over the weekend, do some volunteering, knocking on some doors, working in some areas of a battleground state. I received a text message earlier today asking me if I am prepared, to go on the road, and I'm looking for that. Here we go. It says, are you down for a road trip this weekend? Team Kamala is organizing bus trips for volunteers from all over Illinois to go talk to voters in Wisconsin and Milwaukee. Can you join? So if there are some of you who would like to do that, hey, I certainly want for you to participate in that, and I will put that information, make that information available, put it on my social media, and you can go there and you can sign up to go out and join. So as a matter of fact, I'm gonna put it out now so that if you want to go to my social media page, and you can get the link, and there it is now going out. All right, so now I'm going to get into what the Biden-Harris administration has done. One of my biggest criticisms is that the Biden-Harris administration has not done enough touting of the great accomplishments and the great things that they have gotten done, the great policies that they have gotten done. And so I'm going to go through those tonight. There are many people who don't take the time, or don't have the time, or whatever the reason may be, have not taken the time to do the research, to read, to get the information, to go through and separate the truth from the friction or the fiction. And so, and one of my, I guess, very difficult thing for me to comprehend is how people think that supporting Donald Trump is going to be a good alternative. Now, there are going to be some people who are going to support Donald Trump out of misinformation. They're misinformed. They're angry. They're frustrated. Whatever the case may be, they're going to go support them. This idea that if Kamala Harris loses the election, that it is going to be black men's fault is a falsehood. Black men are the second largest voter for Democratic candidates next to black women. The largest single voting bloc in this country are white women. White women voted 53% for Donald Trump in 2016. 53% of white women voted to support Donald Trump in 2016. They're saying that Harris, according to the polls, white women are 50% for Trump to 45% for Kamala Harris. So the idea that people want to put out misinformation or to somehow suggest that it is black men because you have a few black men that are going to be voting for Donald Trump. Republicans have been saying this since Lee Atwater's ambition or his goal was that they are going to say it whether they get it or not. When he was the chairman of the Republican National Convention from 1992, that said that they're going to get 20% of black men. This is something that they have done every election, presidential election, and then every election for the midterms. And black men have never voted for Republicans more than 12% ever recorded as black men ever voted. And they've always been touting that 20% of black men are going to vote for Republicans or 20% of black men are going to vote for Trump. They tried the same thing here in Illinois during the election for Darren Bailey, and Darren Bailey didn't get 10% of the black men vote. Now, I contend that the only reason that black men, those who are going to vote for Republicans, despite there is zero evidence that Republicans have ever proposed and passed any policies that help the average American working person or family. Thereby, there has not been a policy that they have passed or produced that will help the average black person or family. Period. When I was on the radio for more than a decade, I put the challenge out for people to provide one piece of legislation that Republicans have passed, proposed, and passed that has been a benefit to the average working person and that has been a benefit to the average black family. To this date, more than 14 years later, there still has not been a person who could deliver. I'm not talking about something you're just making up in your head, that you could actually deliver, that the Republicans have passed and proposed and passed on behalf of working people, especially the Republicans, or the extremists, I should say, the extremists from 2010 until now, but really go back 50 years. It just has not happened. It just has not happened. Now, I had a conversation with a person that I owned a unit with in a building, in a condo building, who leans more conservative. And so he's probably didn't say he was a Republican, but that's what he said. He leans more conservative. So I'm going to say that he votes more Republican. But he and I have conversations, and we're able to have conversations, and we're able to talk about issues. And I'm able to share information with him about actual policies that solve problems and that improves the lives of people. And by improving the lives of people, it improves our state of being in this country. And we were having a conversation just the other day, talking about where we are and why we can't even have conversation, or we can't even have discourse about solving problems. Because I believe that these labels, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, independent, whatever, today it's been more weaponized. It's been more weaponized by one person who has caused the kinds of dissension amongst people who once could have a civil conversation, or certainly could have a conversation, or could have a debate and have an exchange without that becoming such a visceral attack on each other. Family members can't have a conversation during the holidays. Family members not talking to each other because of one person. Can't think of the movie that this one person comes into this beautiful town, small town, where everybody in the town helped each other. Everybody. They had everything self-contained, and this one stranger comes into town and gets everybody working against each other, killing each other, destroying this community. This one person. That's what Donald Trump represents. He represents divisiveness. He represents chaos. He represents destruction. He does not represent anything good, and certainly does not represent anything in terms of solving problems. That's what he represents. That is what it is. And so this conversation that I had the other day with this individual, who started talking about, well, the economy was good when he was president. Well, the economy that he inherited was good. 75 months of job growth after they had to get us out of the doldrums of a collapsing economy that was losing every month, losing 900,000 jobs every month. And the Barack Obama Biden administration turned that around and created an economy that grew jobs 75 straight months, a great economy that was turned over to Donald Trump. Donald Trump never passed a single policy. His administration never put forth a single policy that did anything to enhance the economy. Not one. What he did was eventually passed and signed on to this $2 trillion tax cut for the richest 1%, of which the average working family is going to be settled with an additional $2,800 a year. That's the one policy that Donald Trump passed. And because of his failure to respond appropriately to the pandemic, which nobody's blaming him for the actual pandemic, but his failure to respond as a leader to mitigate the number of the catastrophe of deaths, which caused for there to be this great collapse. And of course, when Donald Trump on April the 7th of 2020 found out that Black people were dying disproportionately from COVID, April the 7th, Jared Kushner was the person that he had assigned to putting forth a task force for the attacking and responding to COVID. April the 7th, that report came out in the New York Times. April the 7th, that Black people were dying disproportionately to any other ethnic group at that point in the pandemic. April the 8th, Donald Trump shut down the task force and came out and started saying we have to open up the country because Black people were dying. He didn't say because Black people were dying, but that was, once he got that information, he said, oh, well, we got to open the country. In other words, it doesn't matter what happened to Black people. That's who he is. He's not ashamed of it. And he doesn't try to disguise it, not very well. Whenever he's making the crude comments, he's talking about certain cities that he focuses on. So in this conversation that we were having, he owned a unit, I owned a unit. He is conservative, I am a liberal. I'm a Democrat. I'm going to just say, for the sake of argument, he's a Republican. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. And he starts talking about leaning a certain way, and somewhere we've got to come into the middle, this whole left, right, in the middle, or off center, that sort of thing. And I said, you know, I'm more of a black and white person. I said, you know what? It's more important to me that we actually solve problems, wherever that may fall. And it's probably not going to be in whatever this so-called middle is. How about addressing problems and solving the problems, whatever they may be? And I went on to explain to him, you know, you and I owned a unit in a building. And we had to deal with problems within that building, and we had to solve those problems. It wasn't a Republican problem. It wasn't a Democratic problem. It was a problem. And you and I had to solve those problems. And we got together and we dealt with those problems. And so we solved those problems. And we did whatever was necessary to solve the problem. If we needed X number of dollars to repair stairs, X number of dollars to repair fences, X number of dollars to do landscaping, we had to come up with the resources to do it. One person was not paying their assessments. He and I had to carry the load so that we could make sure that the insurance was covered and the water. was covered, we had to find a resolution to it. And it didn't matter that he was a Democrat, a Republican, and it didn't matter that I am a Democrat. We had a problem, and we had to come together and we had to solve that problem or solve those problems. And guess what? We solved those problems. And it didn't matter that he was a Republican. It didn't matter that I was a Democrat. We just knew that we had to solve the problem. So we solved the problem and resolved the issues. So I said to him, I reminded him of that. That you and I solved some problems that we had. And it didn't matter. We didn't have a conversation that you sat on one side or I sat on the other side. No, it's one building. And we had multiple issues that the two of us had to get together, and we knew that they had to be resolved. Now, there was no Republican way of handling it. There was no Democratic way of handling it. There was no Labor way of handling it, other than we had to address the problem. And we got together and we figured out, okay, what do we need to repair this problem? We need X. So we had to get X in order to repair the problem. Well, in order for us to get X, we had to make sure that the person who wasn't paying, we had to go after them and we had to say, look, this is what we can do. This is the only thing that we have resources to do now. I could either lend the money to the association and we sue the other person, and when the other person pays, I get reimbursed, or we could agree to lend the money and we get reimbursed. However, but the two of us had to get together to agree on what it was that we were going to do. And again, it didn't matter whether it was a Republican or a Democrat, because we didn't talk about, it had to be, a more conservative way or it had to be a more liberal way. We knew it just had to be done. We had to address it. And we had to deal with it. And so we came up with a way to resolve those issues, while we ended up in court for almost 5 years with the other unit owner. And when we got it resolved, the unit owner had to either pay the money or they had to give up the unit. So the unit owner paid the money. They paid the money. And we were able to take care of the issues in the building and repair. It wasn't a Democratic or Republican idea. It was two people who recognized that we had to deal with problems. We never even talked about, well, we got to look at this from the conservative way or the liberal way. No, we got to look at it from a point of a problem. And that is where I believe that we should be. I am thrilled. I am thrilled to death. Now, I am thrilled to death that Republicans and Democrats, Republicans and Democrats, Republicans and Democrats, Republicans and Democrats are coming together. Republicans believe that it is more important that we find a way to stop a person who happens to be a Republican from bringing further friction and danger to our democracy, our democratic way, our fundamentals. Republicans and Democrats coming together to say, we have a problem. Let's solve the problem together. It is my belief that we're going to solve that problem together, that we're going to defeat Donald Trump and send him on his way, so that the country can get on track to solving problems, moving agendas forward to solve problems for people, to improve the lives of people. By improving people's lives, we will improve the country. That's what's important. That's what's important. Now, those people who don't want to accept the facts, and boy, I'm going to give you some facts. Those people who either want to hide behind what has Kamala Harris done for Black people. For those people who say, what have the Democrats done for Black people? Okay, for those people who ask that question and don't really care about what they've done, they just want to be in opposition. They just want to be in opposition for whatever the reason is, for whatever their frustrations are. Anybody who understands government, anybody who understands the way legislation and public policy is put forth in the country, put forth in a state, put forth in a city, anybody who understands that nobody can go into a public office and produce a policy that is squarely for one group of people. Even Dr. King recognized that if you produce an agenda or a policy that is for one group of people, then everybody doesn't start out on the same page. Everybody doesn't have equal opportunity. But if you create a policy that deals with the inequities that everybody can benefit from, then everybody gets help. Black people get help, white people get help, poor whites, poor blacks, poor Latinos. Everybody benefits from it, and the country benefits from it. That's what has happened in this administration. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, through the CHIPS and Science Act, through the American Rescue Plan, through the infrastructure bill, the lowering of insulin. That is a policy for everybody. And as a result of that policy, Black people are being helped by it. The child tax credit. These are policies that are impacting Black people and Black communities, but they are policies that everybody benefits from, but Black people are certainly benefiting from them. And you say, what has Kamala Harris done? Well, Kamala Harris had to vote 36 times in the Senate because the vice president is the president of the Senate, and the vice president has to cast the tie-breaking vote when there is a split. And 36 times, the vice president, as the president of the Senate, had to vote to break the tie. And most of the time that she was voting, if not all of the time that she was voting to break the tie, it was because the Republicans voted against things that were going to help the American public, and it's going to help our economy. Our economy, the inflation rate is down to 2.4%. We have the lowest unemployment in recorded history. Created more than 250,000 jobs last month. The economy is getting better. The Fed cut the interest rate, which is going to improve and make it cheaper for people to buy a home, lowering interest rate, and because people can, the interest rate and the cost of money is going to go down, which will afford for people to be able to buy more of a house and still live and be able to pay for that house because they're able to get a lower mortgage. Income, wages are up, so there is no recession because people are still buying goods and services. All of this is a result of the policies that are coming through this administration. Now, people in the extremist group that don't want for people to participate in the election, I've not heard a single Democrat. I've not heard a single Democrat promote the idea of people not voting. The idea of people not participating in the election, or anybody suggesting that people wouldn't participate in the election, came from a person by the name of Paul Weyrich, who was the founder of the conservative movement and became the chair for Ronald Reagan's finance, or his finance chair. These are his words back in the 1980s.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
That's what, and I'm going to call them the extremists, because I don't want to be unfair and label every person who is a Republican as an extremist, because they're not. There are people that I used to be able to have conversations with, that we used to sit around, we used to be able to have dialogue, and we would come up with resolutions to problems. But because of what we have had to live through over the last 10 years, all of that dynamic has changed. All of that has changed. Also, I'm going to put in the chat, if you want to call in to our number, if you want to call in, we'll open up the call-in line, and I'll take your calls. At some point, yeah. I think Let's make sure we open up the phone lines. And so the phone lines are going to be open at 951-221-8221. If you want to call in and give your comments, so that's 951-221-8221. So this is where we are. I'm kind of going around with this in a really rather slow and methodical way, because I really want for people, especially those people who think that what they're doing is the right thing. It is not the right thing. It is fundamentally not the right thing. Because if you have an issue with the Democratic Party, or about a certain thing that the Democratic Party is not doing, that's fair. But the way that we attack this is working with the group, or the party in this case, that we can best have the opportunities to get things done. And the way to do that is to organize ourselves in a way that we can vote and we can make the kinds of demands to have issues and policies addressed that are that deal with the socio-economic and the socio-political issues that impact the lives of the people in and around our communities. But you also have to look at the evidence of where you are making, or where we make progress, or the most progress, and what group. There's one group that has completely ignored the issues and have voted against every single policy that will be beneficial and are beneficial to the Black community. I'm speaking in specifics now. They're not policies that were made just for the Black communities, but they're policies that will benefit more people, that disproportionately will benefit the Black community. Now we're going to get into the facts of what that is, because there are those who will say, well, what is Kamala Harris doing for the Black community? Okay, it's a silly question. It's one of those condescending questions, but I'm going to deal with that question. The fact is that President Biden, President Barack Obama, President Bill Clinton, President Ronald Reagan, President George Herbert Walker Bush, President George W. Bush, President Ronald Reagan, none of those, Bill Clinton, none of them could pass a piece of legislation or even sign into law a piece of legislation that was made for just a certain group of people, with the exception of massive tax credit to the richest 1%. And they passed that, and as a result of passing that, that tax cut is costing the average working person or working family $2,800, $2,900 a year. And he is touting to the billionaires, if they support him, then they're going to be getting even more massive tax if he is elected. which is going to cost the average family of about, with these tariffs of 20% that he's talking about putting on foreign goods. Well, that's not a tariff that he's putting on the Chinese or that he's putting on Japan. That is a tax that is on the person who is buying their goods and importing those goods to the United States of America, which is going to end up costing you and I, the taxpayer, an average of $4,000 more to buy those goods. So he is putting a broad tax increase on the average working person, or proposing that that's what he's going to do through his Project 2025, and give a huge tax cut to the richest 1%ers. So for those of you who are supporting that, and for those of you who, because you do not understand that the way that you can get the same group of people to address the issues that are important to you, that are good for our community, is for us to organize ourselves together so that we're in a position of voters that we can flex our voice by demonstrating that we have a collective number of voters that can determine any particular person's fate who is in public office, from a commissioner to a state rep to a city council person to a mayor to a commissioner to governor, state rep, state senator, United States congressperson. All of those people, we have the power to be a serious threat to them if we change. Nothing is going to change, or certainly not going to advance in the way that we want it to, in the way that some of you are frustrated about, if we do not change. If you and I do not change the way that we have been doing things by being fractionized. Even the good things that have happened and are going to come as a result of that, the money that is coming behind these policies over the next decade or two, we need to be in a position to make sure that our equitable interest is represented and met. It will not by just being on the on the sideline and by just complaining and having no strategy to address it. It's not going to happen. It takes work. It takes organizing. But the more we organize, the less taxing it is on any one person or any one group. That's why it is important for us to build our own independent voice, our own independent voting bloc, so that we can strengthen our voice in every public arena, every chamber, that when we show up, that they have to respond, even when it is policies that one group does not want to support, but they have to support it if they want to go back to office, because we now have organized ourselves in a certain way strategically that we do have the numbers to say to a person who is in a public office as an alder person, as a commissioner, as a state rep or state senator, as a governor, as a mayor, as a Cook County board president, and on and on and on. We have the numbers that we have put together that if you do not address our concerns, if we cannot come to the table and you meet the concerns to address the socioeconomic and the socio-political and the social, mental, and health and all the other agencies of conditions that have plagued our communities, we now have the wherewithal to say to you that we are going to slate, we're going to select, and we're going to elect someone to replace you. When you have that kind of strength, you will get the kinds of response that we demand. Until we change, that's not going to change. So jumping on the other side, which is not a good alternative, and certainly which is not an alternative for our community, jumping on that side, that's not the answer. Jumping on our side, meaning jumping and bringing ourselves together, that we could force the party that we mostly can get things done with to do more, and to do more of what it is in terms of public policy that we want to have for our people and for our communities. And in terms of them making public policy, that public policy has to be shaped in such a way that it helps everybody, but it certainly helps our communities, and that there is equitable investment, that is same investment that's going to the North Shore, same investment that's going to the Northwest, same investment that's going downtown, are the same investments that's happening on the west side of Chicago, on the south side of Chicago. That is where our collective voices, if we strengthen ourselves, that we can make things better for the people who most need the help in our communities. Strengthen our education, strengthen our public education. We don't have to have all these different kinds of schools or private schools within one public school system. Why do we need to do that? And the reason is because there are special interests that want to, one, control the resources, and two, control the resources so that they can educate a certain people that they're familiar with. Nobody should be able to pick their own students and create a private school funded with public dollars. Every one of our schools in our neighborhoods should function at the highest level, providing the highest level of learning atmosphere and conditions, and making sure that they have all the resources so that every child gets the education that they need in order that they will thrive. We have one public school system. We don't need to have charters or selective enrollment schools within a public school system. Every one of our schools should function like a selective enrollment school. But you and I, in order for that to happen, and in order to take the politics and to take the taking advantage of and treating our public commons like it is a business opportunity for so many, rather than treating it like a public commons and taking the profit out of education. There should not be any profit. There should not be anybody profiting off of our public commons. Anytime that we do this with our public commons, we weaken those institutions. Anytime we weaken them. Now, so I am a product of public schools. I'm a product of public schools. I'm a proponent of public schools. Public schools should be just as productive as a private school. If you want to go to a private school and you can afford to go to one, I have no problem with it. But every person who cannot afford to, the parents can't afford to pay for them to go to a private school, nor should they have to. Our public schools should be just as strong as any private school that is out there. So again, in order for that, that's one area that if we became collective, if we created our own union of Black voters in mass numbers, we could walk into any chamber, and our community will be respected. Now, not about some club, but about representation of the entirety of equity in every area from education to economic that causes and produces for communities to thrive. That's what it's all about. That's precisely what it's all about. It is not about weaponizing ourselves to be, a hard hammer on anybody, but to be a powerful force for the improvement and the upward mobility of our communities so that they thrive like every other community in Chicago. Every neighborhood school, every neighborhood is thriving. So that we have to force to making sure that people who are in these public offices do the work to partner with our communities to making sure that our communities are strong. That is not going to happen as long as we are fractionized. It's not going to happen by us saying, well, we're not going to, it's not going to happen with voting blue. It's certainly not going to happen voting red. It's not going to happen because it hasn't happened. And the reason why it hasn't happened is because they don't have an agenda. They're not interested in an agenda because they are not interested in what happens in our communities. They're interested in what they can extract from our communities to making sure that their communities are thriving. So they're not concerned about our communities. How many Republicans, since those of you who are saying that you're going to be with the Republicans, how many Republicans? Where are the town halls of Republicans coming to the Black community to listen to the Black community? To listen to what the Black community's concerns are, to listen to what the Black community's desires are, to listen to what the Black community's hopes are, to understand where the problems are in the Black community. Where are those Republican town halls? When has one of those happened on the south side of Chicago, on the west side of Chicago? When? I'm not talking about somebody, like Bob Fioretti who switched to be a Republican, which I think is a mistake on his part. But I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about a real town hall of Republicans from The legislature, when? Where are they? If they want to get the support from our communities and they believe that they have some ideas for our community, where are they? When has there been a town hall in our communities with a bunch of Republican lawmakers in the audience listening? When? When did that happen? Okay. All right. Okay. Let's do it this way. When will it happen? When will it happen? I'll give you that. Okay. So it hasn't happened. You say, hey, Mark, give us a chance. Okay. When? Let us know so that we can put it out when we're going to be able to have these town halls all over the South Side and West Side of Chicago with the Republican legislatures who are going to come in and they want to hear from us so that they can go back and they can propose policies that are going to enrich our communities from education to economics. They're going to make sure that there is equitable interest for the Black community. When is that town hall, or are those town halls going to take place? You can send me a text, 773-617-2042. You can send me a text, send me an email. I have several emails. Just send it to Mark at 10by10towin, Mark at 10x10towin.org, or markjwus at gmail.com. Just let us know so that we can put it out, to others that we're going to be having these town halls, because the Republicans, they are concerned about the health and welfare of the Black communities here in Chicago and Cook County in the state of Illinois. They're really concerned about putting together and addressing the inequities that exist within the Black communities. Where is that group? All of those of you who are touting the Republicans, where is the town hall where we can address and hear from the Republicans, and the Republicans can hear from our communities, and they can tell us what they are going to go back to the legislature and do? Where is that group? Where is the town hall of Republicans that we can have over at Chicago State, or we could have over at Malcolm X, or we could have over at the House of Hope, or we could have at any one of these places, that we could have these town halls where Republicans are coming into our communities because they want the support of the Black community, and they want to do what is needed and necessary for the Black community to thrive. They want to get together. Where is that group? I asked you, those of you who want to suggest that that is the way to go, where are they? Since those of you have decided that you are going to that group, where is that group? When have you organized a town hall with them? If you haven't, I'm giving it to you now. Go contact the members of the Republican legislature, the members of the Republican Party, organize some town halls on the West Side or on the South Side so we can go and that we can voice what our concerns are, because you say the Democrats are not doing anything, and we have to do something different. Where is that group? I will await for your text, your phone call, your email, so that I can report back the next time. So maybe I'll hear from you this week. And just as sure as I hear from you this week, and you all organize a town hall with now not just one, but go and get with that group that you have decided that you think that that is the best alternative, and bring them back so that we could have a community town hall of Black folks and Republicans, and the Republicans are going to listen to some Black folks, listen to us Black folks, and they're going to go back and they're going to put forth the legislation that is needed, from education to economics, to make the Black communities thrive. I wait for that information. Now, let me switch over to you, for those of you who are not sure about what the Biden-Harris administration have done, and those of you, again, who said, hey, we've been over there and it just is not working for us. So let me go down the list, a careful list. The information of what they've done. By the way, early voting starts on the 21st. First day of early voting here in the city of Chicago in all 50 wards, October the 21st. The last day to register to vote online on the Illinois State Board of Elections website is August the 20th. The last day to apply for a vote by mail ballot for the November 5th election is October the 31st. November the 4th is the last day of early voting. Election day, Tuesday, November the 5th. Election day from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. A voter can cast their ballot at either of the assigned precinct polling place or at any vote center within Chicago. Same day registration is available at all precincts. Make sure that you are registered to vote. Check your voter registration. Go to iwillvote.com so that you can check to make sure that your voter registration is current and up to date. Last thing you want to do is get to a poll and realize that you're not able to vote. All right, so let me get into this. Let me just get into those of you who won't read, want to find a reason to suggest that the president and Kamala Harris is not doing anything. All right. Now, these are things that are directly through public policy that they've gotten done. The Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Infrastructure Bill, all of these pieces of legislation that they've been able to get done. Here are how those policies, Biden and Harris administration, are impacting the Black community. Those policies have ensured that, hold on one second so I can make sure that we can clearly see it. Ensured Black Americans have health care. More Black Americans have health care than ever before by lowering the premium cost by an average of $800 for millions of Americans, increasing Black enrollment in the Affordable Care Act coverage by 95%. This is through the Biden-Harris administration, expanding on what was done. Or over 1.7 million people since 2020. Lowered monthly premiums for health insurance, capped the cost of insulin at $35, and all out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 for people on Medicare. And announced the first 10 prescription drugs for Medicare price negotiation, expected to save $1.5 billion out-of-pocket cost for the first year of the program alone, made sickle cell disease the first focus of the new Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services model, aimed to lower the high cost of drugs, promote accessibility to drug therapies, and to improve patient care. Expanded Medicaid postpartum coverage from 60 days to 12 months in 46 states and Washington, D.C., covering 700,000 more women in the year after childbirth. Secured an additional $1.5 billion for Head Start, delivered $1 billion to more than 40 states to increase the number of school-based mental health professions. All right. Hold on a second. I'll make sure that I got my. Okay. Secured an additional $1.5 billion for Head Start, delivered $1 billion more for 40 states, increased school-based mental health care. Restoring, according to the Restoring the Soul of Our Nation, this was the motto. Signed 2 executive orders directing the federal government to address inequality, protected Black history as American history, signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act for the first new federal holiday since MLK Day, designated Springfield 1908 Race Riot and Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Monument, signed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act to classify lynching for the first time as a federal hate crime, worked to protect the sacred right to vote through the executive actions and continued calls for legislation, appointed the first Black woman to the Supreme Court, more Black women on the Federal Circuit Court than all previous presidents combined, more Black judges in a single term than any other president. These are things that have happened under the Biden-Harris administration. Making communities safer and strengthening the Americans' commitment to justice. Signed an executive order on police reform when congressional Republicans would not pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, restricted the use of force, banned chokeholds, restricted the use of no-knock warrants, and created the first ever national database for federal law enforcement misconduct. Under the Donald Trump plan, Donald Trump says that he is going to give police officers 100% immunity. 100% immunity is what he's going to give police officers. And this is what some of you say you're going to support. Created the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, signed into law the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the most significant gun violence reduction legislation enacted in nearly 30 years, and taken more meaningful executive action than any other president to make our schools, churches, grocery stores, and communities safer. Secure $350 million in funding dedicated to specifically for community violence intervention that invest in evidence-informed strategies to prevent violence. Pardon thousands of Americans under federal and DC law for simple possession of marijuana. Help bring violent crime to its lowest level in 50 years, lower than during any year of the previous administration. Now, these are just some of the things that they have done. Kamala Harris is proposing that she is going to give $25,000 down payment assistance to first-time home buyers, $25,000 forgivable loans to businesses, 400,000 Black children out of poverty as a result of the tax credit, child tax credit that was passed by the Democrats under expanding the SNAP food assistance program, which Republicans voted to cut. $10 billion in federal contracts awarded to Black businesses in 2023, a total of $69 billion, because under the Biden-Harris administration, unbundled the federal contracts that the federal government appropriates or buys in goods and services over $600 billion a year. Donald Trump bundled those so that only major large capacity companies could get them, locking out small Black businesses. More than $170 billion in student loan debt forgiveness, Black student loan debt forgiveness, $2.2 billion distributed to Black farmers, more Black women on the federal bench. We talked about that. 0 people executed under the Biden-Harris administration, 13 people executed under the Trump administration, 7 of whom were Black. And all of this took place in terms of the execution under the Donald Trump administration. All of this took place after he lost the election. Even when there was one of the litigants that had called for Donald Trump to intervene in one of the executions, and Donald Trump said that he would not do it. The the Harris administration is proposing a $1 million small business loan. Now, that's never been proposed, never been done. Many Black businesses, many people who want to start businesses, Black men will be able to get $1 million to start your small business. She is going to legalize marijuana, and not legalize marijuana. We're certainly not talking about legalizing marijuana for the purposes of people being able to go out and get high, but legalizing marijuana because the people who are disproportionately convicted and sent to prison on these marijuana charges are disproportionately Black men. And coming up on that, Black women. Tripled the number of Black businesses getting small business loans. So you want to complain about what they're not doing. The only reason that you can complain about what they're not doing is that you are either refusing to accept the facts, you're refusing to go do a little research so that you can see just what they've done. All you have to do is go and do a little research, look up the Department of Treasury. They can provide you with that information. Okay, let's just go a little bit further here. I want to show you some things that let's see if I have I thought I had it here. Let's see. Where is it when you need it? There it is. I think this is it. Okay. Oh yeah. Let's talk about Kamala Harris when she was the district attorney. When she was a district attorney in San Francisco, she instituted the Back on Track program, which was a restorative justice program for 18 to 24-year-olds for first-time non-violent, low-level drug offender program. Instead of jail or charging them with a record, they got sent to boot camp for job readiness training, parental training, and they earned their GED and got connected with employers for careers and even got credit repair counseling. Once they graduated from the program, she threw the charges out as though they never existed. And as the DA of San Francisco, she made social services help parents with chronically truant students to get them back into school and kept them from incarceration and kept them out of graveyard. She created the reentry initiative for those who were in jail so that they wouldn't go back. She prosecuted more than 1,200 domestic abuse, prosecuted child molesters, rapists, and violent criminals, as well as transnational gangs, got more than $20 billion back for California from the big banks, from the foreclosure crisis, and she created the Civil Rights Division in the San Francisco DA's office. When she first got into office, she charged out, or she threw all the charges out for the activists and the protesters who got arrested. Now, there's been this phony story going around on social media, and I say to you that before you go repeating something and putting something out there, make sure that you check it with 3 credible resources. You confirm it with 3 credible resources before you put it out. Because if you cannot confirm it with 3 of the mainstream outlets, it did not happen. It didn't happen. So people sometimes send me information or send me things that they think that is information to somehow support why they shouldn't vote or not going to vote. I guess maybe they're trying to convince me that supporting Kamala Harris is a bad thing. It is astonishing to me how anybody could think that that is the case, just on the principles of dealing with somebody who is decent and somebody who is not. Nonetheless, these are the record. These are some of the records of what this administration and what Kamala Harris has done. Now, there was a story, like I said, going around with had some woman on there and a daughter who was talking about Kamala Harris. They couldn't even pronounce her name right. That Kamala Harris arrested her because her daughter was chronically truant. And of course, the story was debunked because it just didn't happen. That wasn't a policy. The policy was to get social services and social workers to deal and help parents with their children to find out what they needed so that they could get the children back into school. That was the policy. The administration powered one of the most historic economic recoveries that created more than 2.6 million jobs for Black workers earning $80,000 to $90,000 a year, achieved both the lowest Black unemployment rate on record and the lowest gap between Black and white unemployment on record, helped Black working families build wealth. Black wealth is up by 60% relative to pre-pandemic, the largest increase on record. cut in half the number of black children living in poverty in 2021 through the American Rescue Plan's child tax credit expansion. This expansion provided breathing room to the families of over 9 million children, began reversing decades of infrastructure disadvancement, including the $4 billion to reconnect communities that were previously cut off from economic opportunities by building needed transportation infrastructure in underserved communities, including black communities, connected an estimated of $5.5 million black households to affordable high-speed internet through the Affordable Connectivity Program, closing the digital divide for millions of black families. Since the president took office, more than 16 million new business applications have been filed, and the share of black households owning businesses has more than quadrupled. Building on that momentum, the Biden-Harris administration continues. Achieved the fastest creation rate of black-owned businesses in more than 30 years, and more than double the share of black business owners from 2019 to 2022. Improve the Small Business Administration flagship loan guarantee programs to expand the availability of capital to underserved communities since 2020. This number and dollar value of SBA-backed loans to black-owned businesses have more than quadrupled. Launched the whole of government effort to expand the access of federal contracts to small businesses, awarding more than $69 billion to small disadvantaged businesses in 2022. Through the Treasury's State Small Business Credit Initiative, invested $10 billion to expand access to capital and invest in early stage businesses in all 50 states, including a $2.5 billion in funding the incentive allocation dedicated to support the provision of capital to underserved businesses, with $1 billion of these funds to be awarded to the jurisdictions that are most successful at reaching the underserved businesses. Help more than 37,000 farmers by getting $2.2 billion to ranchers and black farmers the assistance that they need. Now, here's the problem. Here's a problem that I have. Now, I can go through this list of things that they've done, and I will go through some more. But here's the problem that I see with the Democratic Party and the campaign, is that these facts are not being touted. They are not being shared with the black community so that they can see how their public policies have impacted black communities. This is where the Democratic campaign have not done a good job of actually touting what their accomplishments, and their accomplishments are many. All right, I'm going to open up the phone lines. If you all would like to call and get your comments or get your questions, I'll be happy to do that. So I'm going to, you can call at 951-221-8221. Let's see, we got to open up the phone lines here. Let's see. Okay, we got to open the phone lines back up. Sorry about that. Here we go. All right. Okay. All right, the phone lines are now open. All right. All right. All right, you can now call it 951 221-8221, 951-221-8221. We'll bring you into the program. Now, okay, so kind of went through all of that to share with you. These are the facts. These are the facts, and this is the information. Now, you can accept the information or not. You're entitled to have whatever your thoughts are. But one of the problems that I have, and those of you who, who certainly have followed me down through the years know that I don't get into the he said, she said sort of thing that you cannot support with some information that I can go and corroborate as being factual. And I'm not going to provide you with information that you cannot go and check and corroborate, because I think that the most important thing for me to do as the host of this program is to make sure that I'm providing you with information that you may or may not know. And if you do not know, that you can go and you can rest assured that this information is accurate information. Now, whatever decision that you make, that's the decision that you make. But certainly want to make sure that I'm providing you with factual information, because I don't want for any of us, to be misinformed. I had a conversation with somebody, and I talk with people quite often, and I can pick up pretty quickly that whether a person has done any research or any real studying, because they're just throwing talking points up. That's all they're doing, is talking points that they've heard on some outlet somewhere, but it's not rooted in any facts, and they can't support their talking points. So it's very clear of what it is. And so I asked somebody, well, I didn't ask him, they tried to tell me that we're in a recession, and I said to them, okay, you say that we're in a recession, right? And I said to them, explain to me what a recession is. That's what I asked him. I didn't say that whether we were or whether we were not. I asked for him to explain to me what is the definition of a recession. I just asked him to give me the definition of it. He was not able to give me the definition of the recession because he was merely just throwing out a talking point, or he thought that he could throw out something that that would draw no response. And my response to him was to just define what a recession is. And so I went on to explain to him what a recession was, and what the definition of a recession was. We are not in a decline in economic activity. People are still buying. Income, wages are up. People are still buying goods and service. And usually, in order for us to see a recession, there is a decline over more than a few months in order for there to actually be a recession. Now, there has been talk, whether it's been someone just trying to, cause, those who have the bigger platforms, right, to try to cause fear, to say that we're in a recession when in fact we're not, or to say that inflation is out of control when in fact inflation is down to 2.4%. And we are the envy of the world, while everybody else is 10% or higher. In the developed world, we're at 2.4%, and it's getting better. We just had our interest rate cut, and We just saw one of the greatest job reports last month of more than 240,000 jobs or something like that. It just keeps getting better. Just keeps getting better. Why? Because the policies from this administration and from the Democrats are working on behalf of the American people. The policies proposed by the president and passed by the Democrats are policies that are working on behalf of the American people. Why do I say that? Because these are policies that were voted against by Republicans. All of these policies, the child tax credit through the Inflation Reduction Act, voted against by Republicans. Kamala Harris had to break the tie. So these policies that have been passed and that we are seeing growth came from this administration. Oh, you want to talk about investment? Let's just talk about Illinois, since that's where we are. Let's just talk about Illinois. Let's go to the Republicans can't even go to this. The only thing that Republicans could do is that they could not they don't have a report. They don't have a report. So, meaning that they don't have any policies that they can tout. That's why they have to just tout fear. But here it is. I want to just go through. This came through the Invest in America, right? And I pulled the Investing in America through the Biden administration, and I pulled what they have done just here in Illinois: $8.4 billion in private sector commitments and $16.6 billion in public investment in clean energy infrastructure and manufacturing under the Biden-Harris administration. $2.1 billion funding from the Biden administration to provide affordable, reliable, high-speed internet to everyone in Illinois. $11.1 billion and transportation investment in roads, bridges, public transportation, rails, ports, and airports, as well as electric school buses and transit buses and EV charging. $2.6 billion in private sector commitments for 4.8% unemployment rate and going lower. 455,000 new jobs created under the Biden administration, all in Illinois. $1 billion announced to provide clean water across Illinois. $15.7 billion in bipartisan infrastructure funding has been announced for Illinois. 488 new projects. $11.1 billion in transportation. $6.7 billion for roads and bridges. $2.9 billion for public transportation. $494 million for airports. $268 million for ports and waterways. $1.6 billion for high-speed internet. $982 million for clean water. $249 million for clean transportation. $52 million for clean transit buses. $239 million to clean up legacy pollution. $1.4 billion for the resilience to strengthen our community's readiness for climate impacts and others. So this is just in Illinois, which means there are $46 billion that's coming through Illinois through the Investing in America plan through the Biden-Harris administration. So I cannot stress to you enough. I cannot stress to you enough that in this election, that I'm not interested in stoking fear. Really the facts. That what Donald Trump has said that he is going to do, and what the people in Donald Trump's orbit said that they are going to do. I want to play you some clips. I want to play you some clips of people in the orbit. Now, he says that he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. He says he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. Well, we dug up some clips from an interview where a Trump aide was in a meeting that he thought, Russell Vought, that he thought that he was meeting with some Donald Trump, some wealthy Donald Trump donors. And this is what he said in this undercover interview about Donald Trump saying that he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. This is Russell Vought, one of Donald Trump's high-ranking that served in his administration. This is what Russell Vought said. I'm going to play you some clips. We're going to listen to a few different clips.
Notwithstanding, I expect you to hear 10 more times from the rally, the president, distancing himself from the left's boogeyman of Project 2025.
Yeah. And you're not worried about that?
No, I'm not worried about it. And so I see what he's doing is just very, very conscious distancing himself from a brand. He's very supportive of what we do. And know that we have all manner of things that we do that's, even unrelated to Project 2025.
Sure.
Now, Donald Trump will tell you that he knew nothing about it. And on one hand, and then the other hand, he says that what he does know about it, some of it is extreme. He's extreme. But Russell Vought just told you what his approach is. So he goes on to talk about what their plans.
80% of my time is working on the plans of what's necessary to take control of these bureaucracies. I want to be the person that crushes the deep state. I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. It is defunding it, it's impoundment, the ability to not spend money, it's getting rid of their independence.
Now, keep in mind, when they start talking about the deep state, what he's talking about is defunding the government, defunding things like the Department of Education, defunding FEMA, and suggesting that FEMA should be defunded, and that when we have natural disasters like we've had the two hurricanes, Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton down in Florida and North Carolina, and the people who are ravaged in a hurricane. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in a hurricane. I've been through a hurricane. I'm from Miami, Florida. I've been through a hurricane. The last major hurricane that we had was Hurricane Andrew. I was not down there. I was here in Chicago, but I had to go there with my family. And it took years. It took years. My family had to live in a trailer on the side of the house because the house was uninhabitable. And it took years before we could get the contractor to come because they were so busy, backed up, to come and to rebuild our home. As many other people had that same issue. Now, no local or state government by itself on its own can handle the kinds of responses through those kind of natural disasters. And here you have Donald Trump and his people are saying that they want to upend FEMA, page 664, that they want for local governments. Now, FEMA funds 75% of the support for disaster relief, 75%, and the local governments in the states puts in the other 25%. Donald Trump's people want to do away with that, and they want to defund it, and they want for the local and states governments to pick up the 75% and the federal government pick up maybe 20%. They want to do away with all of the alert systems that we have that helps to inform us about tracking of storms and so that we can prepare for them. They want to do away with all of those things. They shut down the poor response that we had to COVID was because they decided to defund the Office of Infectious Diseases. During the Trump administration. They decided to just do away with that. And all they're talking about now, as he said just the other day, that he would even use the military to fight, quote unquote, the enemy from within. That means to go against people in America, to go against American city, to sic the military and the Department of Justice on people who don't agree with him. This is what those of you who are saying that you want to support, this is what you want for a presidency. This is what you're asking for a presidency. That is saying that either you're terribly, terribly confused and misinformed, or that you don't understand the importance of our federal systems and our democratic process. Though it is not perfect, but it will certainly be further diminished as it is being diminished now. You have people who literally believe what Donald Trump says, saying that FEMA money is going to people that is not going to. FEMA is fully funded. The people are getting the resources that they need. More than 350,000 people have applied for the FEMA resources that is available to them. There are other people who may not be applying because of what the rhetoric that they're hearing from somebody who doesn't care about solving problems. They just care about themselves and the focus on them. Not about the people who are in desperate situations right now, people who at this very moment just need to make sure that they have some clean water. And some people at this very moment who are living in makeshift housing with no electricity. People who are just trying to get gas in their car. They cannot get gas. Imagine where we live here in Chicago for blocks that there is no electricity. None. I mean, for blocks, no electricity at all. That's the way that we had to live for weeks until they could get power on. So when you have someone who is as irresponsible and as childish as Donald Trump is, you have to ask yourself a question. If you're supporting this person, what does that say about you? That's what you have to ask yourself, because you're not supporting anything that's good. Now, if in fact, as many people as the polls are suggesting is supporting Donald Trump, it is sending us or reminding us that we are not as far advanced in our social, racial conditions as we would like to think, or as we or some have thought. We are not. If in fact the polls that are out, if these numbers are correct, or these pollsters are accurate, we have not made the kinds of social and racial advances as we thought. We are probably as much divided today as we have been in 4 or 5 decades, maybe more. If the polls are correct, and these are the choices that we have, even the gender gap is worse than what we imagine. It's worse than what we thought. Maybe there's a significant amount of misogyny that is going on. And we saw the same thing when Hillary Clinton was running, and they tried to make it about something else, some emails, some nonsense. But just maybe we have to do some soul searching, or not even soul searching, but certainly have to come to a realization that we are not as advanced socially as we thought that we were. We are not. If in fact these numbers are accurate, we are so far off in our understanding of where we thought that we were. Oh, we thought that because we see more interracial couples and people on television and these little wonderful sayings that they have. I was watching the news and they have these sayings along in the football arenas, in racism. I think that's cute. That's cute. It's, but I'm not sure how some writing on a football field in an end zone by ending racism, I'm not sure how that moves the needle. I have no idea how that moves the needle. I don't watch the NFL anymore, so I watch college football, but I don't watch the NFL. That's my protest, because they decided to blackball Colin Kaepernick because he wanted to bring awareness to a problem that we have. And I think that was another example of proving that we are not as far advanced in our social justice equity as we like to tout. We are not. We are not there. If in fact the numbers hold, because there could be no rational reason that any person of decency, of character, and courage, and conscience would be supporting the likes of a Donald Trump. What we ought to be doing is supporting Kamala Harris, getting Kamala Harris elected, so that we can be finally rid of Donald Trump's nonsense from ever taking power and control of the presidency of the United States. And he can go on and to his little private playpen or whatever. But we don't have time for that. I would hope that this election, that Kamala Harris becomes the next president of the United States by a landslide. That the American people stand up and say, we are going to move forward. We're going to do better. Because this is an election that's about character. It is literally about character. I don't want a person in office who is a person that is reckless, and a person who is vindictive, who is about revenge on the American people. That is not the person that we need to have in office. So what we do know with Kamala Harris is that we will have somebody who is going to respect process and respect the rule of law, the rule of engagement, and our Constitution. I applaud the people who are Republicans who are saying it's more important that we have somebody in office that we can know and trust, that's going to protect the pillars of our foundation and of the Constitution. We can debate on how we get to resolutions. We can get to that. But we have to have a foundation for us to be able to have the opportunity and the ability to debate, to discuss. to negotiate. That would not be under a Donald Trump presidency. And therefore, it is absolutely incomprehensible to me. I cannot comprehend it. How anybody would support what he is touting and what he's presenting. It's not like he's had some indiscretion, where he's had some indiscretion with some relationship or something like that. Not even talking about that. What this man has demonstrated to us is that he has no respect for the very foundation and the Constitution, or an appreciation for trying to make that better for all people. He has no respect for that whatsoever. And I ask you to please talk to your family, your friends, or anybody who is considering or saying that they're going to support them, to get them to understand what the facts are about this person, because if that's what they're supporting, then maybe they're saying that's who they are. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe there are more people that is like that than what we thought or imagined, even in our own family, even in our own circles. Maybe there are more people like Donald J. Trump than we could have ever imagined. I want to be on the side of hopeful that that's not the truth. That's where I want to be. I want to be on that side. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. I want to thank you all for tuning in to the program, and I'll be back with you on next Monday night. I'm headed down to Florida to be with my family that has been shaken to its core with the loss of a family member who died by suicide. And I am encouraging the members of my family to seek intervention, to seek counseling, that all of us need to seek that counseling. And if you've got some person in your family and in your circle that is in crisis, get them to crisis intervention. If you are having some moments of suicidal thoughts, dial 988, the crisis lifeline, and they have people there and resources to get you to a place where you can go and you can get the kinds of intervention that you need and get the support that you need. Mental health breakdowns are a real thing. Our mental health is no different than our health, no different than our physical health. And our mental health, we need support in our mental health. And we need to make sure that our mental health is strong so that we can go on and have productive lives. All right, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thank you all for tuning into the program. Look forward to seeing you right back here next Monday on the Monday night edition of The People Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. See you next week.